we are having a webinar today with Sean Callagy, speaking on integrity-based human influence.
Justin, while we're waiting, maybe we'll just go through the calendar of upcoming sessions.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got the session today, obviously, on integrity-based human influence. Then in August, our session is going to be with Julia Samuel, best-selling author of 3 books. Yep.
August 3rd.
August 3rd. And that will be talking about grief and how grief works and how to overcome death, dying, and mourning of any sort. And then in September 7th, good assistance. We will have Larry Swedrow and Sam Adams, not the president or the beer maker, talking about sustainable investing. That has been a very, very hot topic. The SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, has come in and really started to help regulate more about that topic in terms of the investment strategies surrounding it. And so Sam and Larry just wrote a book on the topic, sustainable investing, and that will be a tremendous webinar, an educational event about that. Then in October, I don't know if we have the date available. October will be
probably going to be the 12th. We have to talk about the date.
Okay.
We have a conflict on the 5th.
The first or second Wednesday in October, we will have Keith Singer, an attorney, to discuss the basics of estate planning, kind of what documents do you need, what documents do you not. And then in November, that will be the second Wednesday in November. The date is
November 9th.
November 9th. And then that will be, David, who's the speaker on that about caregiving?
That's Nancy Dykman, who's going to be speaking on caregiving. So we're going to be talking about how to, the different options are available for somebody when they are no longer able to care for themselves. Obviously, people would like to stay at home, but there's so many different options as well. But as I was speaking to Nancy when we set up the date, if you don't have a plan, that's when you end up in an institutional setting more often than not. So we like to talk about all the different options that will prevent you from having to go into a facility. So we'll have her come in and talk about different methodologies, different options that are available for people.
Okay. Hello. Can you guys hear me, Justin?
I can, Sean. How's everything going?
So we've heard the entire schedule. We've been trying to unmute. Looking forward to each of the monthly talks and all the things. So I don't know what the challenge is. We're still trying to work on it, but I'm on audio for now. How are you?
Phenomenal. I'm chilling in my place in Ocean City, Maryland. Not quite LBI, but still very, very nice for me.
Awesome. So how can we best serve today? I know we're talking about integrity-based human influence, Justin, but how can I serve you and the group most? That's always my top outcome.
Yeah, so I really wanted to, and Tink sent over some fabulous slides in advance. I don't know if we have the technology to pull them up. I may be able to get them up as well. But just talking about kind of your take on influence and how to unleash the levels of different mastery of influence when engaging in a conversation, when talking, really diving into level 5 listening and making sure you're hearing about what that person is saying and really trying to serve and love that person first and foremost. So if you just kind of do what you do, Sean, I think it would serve our audience tremendously. We've got a mix of business owners, some retirees on the call, some attorneys. So you take it away, and we got a big mix of people.
Yeah. So Justin, I appreciate that enormously, and thank you for having me. Thank you for putting this together. I appreciate it very, very much. 25 years ago, I was working at one of New Jersey's largest law firms, and I realized that that influence was in fact a thing. I was in the process of going blind. I am blind now, and I had played sports growing up. I was captain of my Columbia University baseball team and 4-year Division I starter, and I hoped to go on to play professionally. But I didn't understand how business worked. I didn't have a context. Einstein says, if it would give some the outcome for today isn't to give a couple tips that might be helpful. The outcome for today is to propose a structure of aligning thinking and creating more clarity around things that you might have heard some pieces of, parts of, to put it together in a more optimal systemic structure, right? So Einstein said, make it as simple as possible, but not simpler. And if we make something too simple, we don't get the effective outcome. If we make it simpler than it really needs to be, we also don't produce the outcome. So when I learned that influence was a thing, I had no money, I had no relationship capital, I had no identity in the world, and I had no teammates working in one of New Jersey's most prestigious law firms 25 years ago. And when I learned that the people who were able to build relationships was a foundational part of building business, that was an awakening for me. I thought, as a former athlete, that the person who performed the best was the person who got the best outcomes. So I thought, I went to law school, by the way, knowing I was going blind, so I would hopefully be able to earn a living and support a family. And when I discovered this, I'm $100,000 in debt, and I come to a place of realization that I have no idea how to do any of the things necessary to build business. I thought just doing a great job as an attorney was enough. And when I realized that marketing, selling, recruiting, managing, leading, scaling, all of this mattered, I had no access, no framework, no context for this. And it was unbelievably, not only disheartening, it was crushing, it was devastating. So I had a pivot point in my life 25 years ago, which was either I was going to go blind and be broke and go back and coach high school baseball and football until I went blind and become a high school teacher of some sort, or I was going to go build, and I said, but be broke, because eventually, obviously, I wouldn't be able to do those things, right? I was going blind, so maybe I'd have 5 or 10 years of that. I had $100,000 of law school debt, so there was not a strong economic prospect. To condense the story and get to the substantive meat and takeaways for today, and I'm just setting context for my credibility on the point of influence, I said, I'm going to quit my job at this major law firm 6 months out of law school. I'm going to start my own law firm, and I'm going to see if all of these things that I'm beginning to learn and put together about influence, what to do with it, and how emotionally to get ourselves to use it, actually all work. And I was shocked. I was blown away. And I built a 40-person law firm 2 years after leaving this firm. And I did it with no money. I did it with no identity, as I shared before. And I was watching so many intelligent, hardworking, heart-centered, good people. I was watching less heart-centered, hardworking, still good people that were working in the professional services ranks of legal, accounting, financial services, real estate. And I was watching people suffer. And I was like, it doesn't have to be this way. Yeah, I came to the point of realizing that to give this to people, to share this with people, so people in a capitalist structure can serve others integrally, and they can cause the things they wanted in their own life, became my life's mission, passion, and framework. And so what does that all look like? I began the journey of collating influence. And, a few of the final pieces of this puzzle are: built a 40-person law firm and sold it within 4 years. How many people build and sell a law firm? Maybe some of you don't know it, because it's a very difficult thing to do. I built then a coaching and training company between 2004 and 2006. And 99.9% of people who graduated from my coaching school didn't go on to build a coaching practice and business. I did, and to this day, it was the most substantial, most successful in financial terms and otherwise. I built a second law firm, which I currently own, Callagy Law, with 125 people a part of it. That we went from 0 people to 100 people with no equity partners, all business that I was privileged to generate within 2 years. In the late 2000s, I still own that firm. Went on to have one of only 2 law firms in the country. I was only one of two attorneys in the country out of 1.2 million to have two top 100 national jury verdicts between 2014 and 16. We had a $27 million, $33 million verdict, and I was the only person that was blind. Raised $2.6 million for Ukraine relief in 3 hours 2 weeks ago. I've raised close to $10 million over the last 3 years for charity, meaning with me on the microphone at events where people didn't understand they were fundraisers. And this is from a person who failed freshman high school geometry for the year, and a person who was incredibly introverted as I grew up, and I couldn't think of selling or marketing anything. I couldn't think of doing anything but leading by example in athletics. I had no idea how to communicate with human beings. So this isn't like I was born with the ability to do these things. My life's work is to stand as an example what's possible for people I encounter. And I'm on the endless journey of still growing and improving myself to get to a place of helping people understand that the ability to go from hello to yes with integrity, hello to yes in everything, is the beginning of everything. The ability to go from hello to yes in anything is the beginning of everything. So that dynamic is what I'm fully present to. And Justin, feel free to jump in any questions at any point. How do you do that? I think people falsely relate that to birth, genetics. People relate that to charisma. They make it simpler than it is. Yeah, they just have it. They have that it factor. You know, they have the gift of gab. They're good BS artists. You know, these are all things that we hear people say about people who have the superpower of influence. And some people are BS artists. And so some people have the gift of gab. But I am very confident that those categories of people don't have the level of influence of Oprah Winfrey, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, to explain how Donald Trump becomes president, how Joe Biden beats Donald Trump in the second election, how Bill Clinton rises from nowhere to power, how the United States comes to formation under the leadership of George Washington, the founding fathers. And these are apolitical comments. You know, I am an apolitical person. I have strong beliefs about this country. I love this country. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm for truth. I'm for utility. I'm for the superpower of influence being used to solve big problems for good. And I'm very confident that division caused by economic engines of media and otherwise is catastrophically destructive. And I don't think it's even true. And that's a longer story for a different day. I don't think we are I don't think we are 1/10 as divided as some would have us think as human beings in America. I think we all want the same thing. I think we want to have a certain level of financial abundance, a certain level of time freedom, a certain level of magic, which is the experiences we want and enjoy overall. So that's the place I begin from. In a capitalist structure, I want to free people to cause more of what they want. 96% of businesses fail, less professional services businesses fail, but still amongst those businesses that don't fail, including professional services, very few people ever become a business owner and not operator. And as a quantitative illustration of some of the work that we do, one of our clients is in financial services, and that person went from 8 sales meetings a month with new potential clients to more than 1,000 sales meetings per month in a 2-year period, from 8 to 25, 25 to 75, 75 to 150, 150 to 300, 300 to 1,000, and grew a team from 3 to 29. And that team is still growing, and there's many, many more stories, but that would be an example of some of what we're talking about. For this person's life has changed generationally, not only because of the economic dynamics, but also because they've gone from a person who is involved in day-to-day selling, and which is a beautiful thing, nothing wrong with that, but to now training, developing team, and having trainers under them within the structure. So they have a new level of time freedom to do the things they love doing most in the world, like coaching their kids' basketball teams and being present at things that they were not nearly as able to be present for in the past. So our work, my work, is how do people design the life that they truly desire, that is in alignment with the highest vibrational energy and the most freedom. So whether that's a solo practitioner or a small entrepreneur, or it's somebody that wants to build, grow, and scale something massive, how do we create those outcomes? And I think there's three parts. I'm sure. There's process mastery, which is what you do, influence mastery, which is how you go from hello to yes, and self-mastery, which is how you get yourself to use these things. And today we're going to focus just a little bit, like tip of the iceberg, on the superpower of integrous influence. So what we need to do from there, and I think we have video, so I'm going to jump over to video in this second, right? Of influence is rooted in the dynamic of what is influence? And I believe that influence is the ability to take an idea, something inside of us, transfer it to another human being, have it received and acted upon. Again, whether that's marketing, selling, managing, leading, recruiting, fundraising, or any yes that we're seeking in anything we do, including where we're going to go for dinner tonight, where our child's going to go to college, whether or not our child's going to obey, sort of curfew and all the other permutations of hello to yes conversations that we have as humans, right? And so foundationally, and I want to leave people some extraordinary takeaways for today. So one is that we all have the ability to acquire the superpower of influence. And integrous influence is that transference of information, but with a degree of transparency. So not a degree, with transparency, and with an intention to add more value from people than we take. So transparency, the ability to add more value than we take, is how we define integrity in the space of influence. So in addition, that causes us the ability to go to sleep every night and feel good about what we do. Because I think a lot of folks, see Wolf of Wall Street, or see the movie Wall Street, or see many, many things where we feel like we're in levels of concealment. We feel that we are out of integrity with other human beings. Eventually, people, I believe, destroy their business, their frameworks, when they don't feel great about what they're doing. They don't feel an integrity about what they're doing. And that is obviously a very non-sustainable model. So what does the influence process look like, presuming integrity is in place? Again, transparency, the desire to add more value than we take. Well, we break this down into 4 steps, 12 indispensable elements, and 4 energies. You go, oh, I've heard of something like this before. You may have heard of something like this. Maybe it seems like that. But when I studied the greatest works in influence foundationally, everything from How to Win Friends and Influence People, to neuro-linguistic programming, to spin selling, to Sandler sales, and all these things I've studied for 25 years, I found meaningful to gaping holes in the execution and the bringing forth of the work. So what we talk about is understanding that there is a constant repetitive framework to make it as simple as possible, not simpler, to all of human influence, whether we're selling legal services, financial services, accounting services, real estate services, widgets, cell phones, whatever the dynamic. There's a mechanism of how that works. And again, influence isn't just the sale. Influence is how we generate more sales meetings, how we generate strategic partnerships, how we recruit people, manage people, lead people to have yes moving together in alignment at scale, to have yes moving together in alignment at scale, right? And so when we think about the circles that you're seeing on the screen, the 4 steps, 12 indispensable elements, and 4 energies work this way. And obviously we're not teaching 20 things in the few minutes we have left together, but we will give you a couple takeaways. Justin noted level 5 listening. We will definitely give you a hard takeaway on that. But the first hard takeaway I want to have related to this integrity-based human influence model is that the 4 steps operate in a linear sequencing. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. We can all know in every conversation we're in what step we're in. Pause. This is not a mechanical model. This is not a model where you go, okay, so I'm in some script which feels inauthentic to the other person. Au contraire. And if you ever watch the movie Boiler Room, for example, there's a moment in the movie where a newspaper cold calling salesperson calls him up and gives him the pitch. We teach affirmatively against pitching, hooking, closing, because I don't think anybody here would want me pitching, hooking, or closing you.
I don't want you pitching, hooking, and closing me either, nor would I want you pitching, hooking, and closing my mom. I don't think you would want anybody else pitching, hooking, closing your mom. What we want to do is we want to, in the 4 steps, we want to open up listening through the creation of emotional rapport. Pause. You're like, yeah, I understand rapport. Sure. Like I've heard a lot of people talk about rapport. Of course. Well, how do you predictably create emotional rapport in every setting, every time, to eliminate all of the filters, false frames, and false context? That's what mastery is all about. And you say, I've heard you use the word like mastery a couple times. Is that just a sort of catchword? No. Every word we use is intentionally selected. And every word we have has a deeper meaning that causes things. So we use the word mastery. What the apprentice does a couple of things that are very different than the masterful apprentice. I'm going to come back into this mechanism in a second. The apprentice listens through the prism of, I know, and they're looking and listening for things they've heard of to create correlation to what they already know. See Daniel with Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. And Daniel, in the beginning of being trained by Mr. Miyagi, was all excited for about a day. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Miyagi gave him exercises to do: wax on, wax off, sand the floor, block, paint the fence. And after a couple of days of this, Daniel was furious and irate because he knew that Mr. Miyagi, he was punching and kicking. It did not look like waxing Mr. Miyagi's cars, painting his fence, or sanding his floor, right? But what Daniel wasn't present to yet, and he would become shortly, because Mr. Miyagi would give him a demonstration, was that of the masterful apprentice, which says, I don't know yet. Like, what am I looking for that I don't know yet? What don't I know yet? And the do and don't know comes to the prism, the deep prism of actualization. So anything that we don't know, that we're not actualizing, we don't know. So I don't know how to build $1 billion company because I haven't. I do know how to rapidly build an 8-figure personal services business because I've done it multiple times. So the mechanism of like what we know and don't know in the masterful apprentice is seeking that which is not actualized yet and looking for the reasons why it is, which is why we created the entire formula that we have. The second quick distinction, mathematically, because that sounds like nice and sort of Yoda Mr. Miyagi-ness, is math. I love math. I love heart. I love math. And here's the math. If pre-COVID, you're in a 90th percentile in income, you made about $100,000 a year. 95th percentile, you made $150,000 a year. 99th percentile, you made about $400 a year. Going from 1 in 10 to 1 in 100, meaning 90th to 99th percentile, you went from 100,000 to 400,000, so 4x increase. This is an interesting pattern that continues to evolve. The pattern is this, that as you go up the ladder, the exponential jumps become larger and larger. So if you become a 99th percentile person, 99.9, all of a sudden you're making $1.7 million. 99.99, you're making 7.8 million, 99.999, $56 million a year. I think everything works that way, including the ability to create influence. It's a math formula of the exponentiality of the level of our mastery, of influence, of money, of health. All of these things operate on an exponentially different paradigm as we move up into the micro levels of being outstanding. And the work that we teach and we share, we've noted that folks in like the 0 to 90th percentile tend to be people who are like blown away by what's happening. People in the 99th percentile plus are blown away and understand the level of mastery present. It is the people that sit roughly between the 90th and 99th percentile, which is people who are very good, but not masterful, who have the most closed listening and the deepest level of friction in rising in their mastery of influence, what to do with it and how to get yourself to use it. So they operate in that $100,000 to $400,000 block and have an extraordinarily difficult time leaving it because of the I know dynamics, right? Again, using pre-COVID numbers. I know inflation and COVID has altered those numbers a bit, okay? So in our last few minutes, let's complete 2 big takeaways. So, well, actually 3, a macro takeaway, 2 micro takeaways. The macro takeaway is the 4 steps are: first, building emotional rapport, but in a model that is predictable and reproducible. And to cause that at the emotional rapport level, we want to make sure that we are asking only open-ended questions in step 1 and step 2 of all human communication we have, and only adding I statements and clarifying questions. So if our meeting is an hour long, steps 1 and 2 should be 2/3 of the meeting. If our meeting is 10 minutes long, our 2/3 of the meeting should be steps 1 and 2. Steps 3 and 4, the final third, the final third. And in all of those first 2 steps, the first 2/3 of every meeting we have are only open-ended rapport building questions. We don't have time today to go through what all those are, but in every setting, in every situation, the outcome of those first 2 steps, and here's big takeaway of emotional rapport building, is to do what Oprah Winfrey said is the reason she held the microphone for 30,000 people. The modeling of excellence is what it's all about. Like Oprah or not, she became a multi-billionaire, having every statistical improbability of doing so as somebody who was sexually abused as a child, teen pregnancy, African-American or Black woman, depending upon your choice of terminology, because there's differentiation in that. And she was a woman. And you put all of those factors, gender bias, racial bias, bias against teen pregnancy, bias against obviously people traumatized and all the conditions that happen, particularly in sexual abuse, and the likelihood of Oprah Winfrey becoming a multi-billionaire should have a better chance of being struck by lightning twice in 5 minutes while holding a winning lottery ticket to do everything that she did. And the reason she did it, her words, is every person she encountered, she wasn't cynical, she wasn't negative, she wasn't finding what was wrong. She left people feeling, her words, I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters to me. And if every encounter you have with a human ends like that, versus our desire and need and our ego to be right, to see what's wrong, but you leave people instead acknowledged and validated. I see you, I hear you, what you say matters. The trajectory shift that creates is indescribable. And indescribable, including the Uber driver, the server in a restaurant, the biggest potential client you could have, the biggest stage you could speak on. That dynamic is really extraordinary. And once that happened and I understood that, my life changed, because I grew up, like many, in a household that wanted to be right, want to tell people what to do, what to think, and find out where people were wrong and correct people if they said the wrong capital of New York or whatever. It was just the conditioning to gossip and third party, talk about people behind their back. And those mechanisms processes are totally normal. They are ingrained in our psyche. And they're very, very different than I see you, I hear you, what you say matters to me. Those 4 steps, which conclude with an agreement and a yes, are preceded at step 3 by your conveyance of your heroic unique identity. With every person, here's a hero. I believe you're a hero. I believe you have countless stories of sacrifice, countless patterns of being a problem solver, heart center, all these beautiful, incredible things. How that comes forth to people in integrity through the stories you tell is utterly life altering, because people will do business with people they like far more than people who are truly competent. And if you can become truly competent and masterful and be liked by humans and leave them with I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters, you will be their trusted advisor in all things. And the only thing I request is that you never abuse that power, because that power will be mind-boggling over the ability to cause people to say yes. So those are the 4 steps. There are 4 energies of influence that are happening as the 4 steps happen, all simultaneous. No time for that today. There are 12 indispensable elements, because steps sound scripted. This is anything but scripted. Scripting equals destruction. Scripting of cold calls, scripting of warm calls, scripting of follow-up equals destruction. You're like, we have scripts. It's okay, because script structure can operate within the prism of formula and will no longer feel like script. Instead, it will feel like guideposts of things to make sure we address and have come into the conversation. There's 12 indispensable elements that must be present: scarcity, matching, mirror, acknowledgement, all the way to the final 3 C's: congruence, context, contrast. And the one we're going to share and then pause for Justin to answer any questions, etc., is level 5 listening. Level 5 listening, first, everything we teach, we always contrast with what it's not, isn't hearing that somebody likes the Mets and saying, oh, wow, you like the Mets? I like the Yankees. I love baseball. Any I statement is level one listening, taking it back to us, right? Taking it back to us. That's level one listening. Level two listening is reflective listening. Level three listening is inferential listening, saying, wow, yeah, I love the Mets. Inferential listening is there's a pause, there was energy, there's something deep on the person's heart to unlock. Like, wow, I'm hearing something there. Like, what about the Mets? Well, in many ways, it was the only thing that I could connect with my dad about. And the most powerful moment I've ever had with my dad was in 1986 when the ball rolled through Bill Buckner's legs and we're sitting there, dot, 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 dot. Human beings don't feel heard. And we hear any shift in what people are saying energetically. People communicate in three ways: vocal qualities, body language, and word selection. When we hear anything that might be a little bit of a unique word or emphasis on a word, we hear vocal quality shifts, or we see energy and body language change. Level 5 listening is unlocked by recognizing those things and asking questions into it. Because here's the fundamental bottom line takeaways: no human being brings up a topic that they don't want to talk about. And the whole progression of emotional rapport building at step 1 through step 4, bolstered by constant level 5 listening, which is what people say, what they don't say, why they say it and why they don't, which is the work of a mentalist. So what mentalists do to make it seem like they're reading minds, not reading minds at all. They're just listening at level 5. They're creating the deepest listening of people, which causes what Oprah said, the ability to say, I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters. In all of this, what I see and hear about Justin is a desire to cause positive things for human beings, to bring people together, to cause acceleration, and to make beautiful and magical things occur for people as an added value, to begin a shared experience, to cause relationship, because he wants to do good in the world. He wants to grow his business, and he wants to serve people by giving first. Justin, am I hearing you correctly?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was the kind of the foundation of these webinars to, first help, educate people, bring people together, and why I thought it was great to have you on as one of the speakers here. So I really appreciate you kind of going off on that and hearing me of what we're trying to do here at Personal Wealth Strategies.
Awesome, brother. So anything else I can answer? How would you like to proceed from this moment? I'm pausing in service of where do we go from here? Or are we at a completion, question answering? Anything else I could do to support and serve?
Yeah. So if people on the line have any questions they want to have answered, they can definitely start to put them in the chat, and we can go through that. I just want to make a comment on kind of everything kind of going into the system, diving in through most of the training. And when you say formula, I know that's an intentional word. And I don't know, if you probably don't know my background is studying biomedical engineering. So I have my master's degree in biomedical engineering, was in the PhD program at Rutgers. And, I dealt with formulas, chemical formulas all the time. And it relates almost exactly to that, because I've definitely heard all of this different stuff before, but with everything and how you put it together and designed it into the formula, that's exactly what it is. You sprinkle a little bit of this, and you get the result that you are hoping for as a scientist. And that's what you've done kind of with the 4-12-4 here.
Well, thank you for that, Justin. And without a doubt, because I heard so many people going through trainings and different aspects, and it was such different outcomes people were producing. And once I understood that our level of influence, what we do with and how we emotionally get ourselves to use it, determine our money, our time, freedom, and our magic, our fulfillment, our impact, I said, I got to figure this out. And as I began to figure it out, I became even more frustrated, because I'd be reading Zig Ziglar's book on 99 closings. I'd be reading How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it would say wonderful things, great tips, but there wasn't a mechanism to ensure the creation of rapport. Like all this, like what's the start to finish dynamic? How do we go about these things and have it feel integrous, beautiful, and authentic? And that was the work. So thank you for seeing that.
All right. Daniel says, I'm fascinated by the 5 levels of listening. Could you list those once more? Missed a couple in the middle.
Yeah. So watch this. We'll have a little bit of fun. Hey, Justin, what's your favorite thing to do for fun?
Go to the beach.
Really go to the beach. I love going to the beach. That's level one listening. It immediately destroys rapport. It takes it back to me. So Justin, what do you love about going to the beach?
I love soaking in the rays, getting in the ocean, swimming around, and just chilling out, having a cocktail.
Nice. So you like do a little swimming, have a little drink, catching some rays. Sounds fun. That's level two listening. It's mirroring back what the person actually said, right? So Justin, hearing like out of those things, like having a cocktail, catching some rays, hanging the beach, which one do you like most? Pause. That's level three listening, because people inferentially are going to like one of those things most. And it was fun because Justin said having a cocktail. And he said with a little bit of energy on it, a little bit of fun. So my hallucination is having cocktails with friends. This is me out of role, right? Is a meaningful component of that to you, Justin, and the socialization dynamics. Am I hearing you correctly?
Correct. Yes, friends and family.
Yeah, friends and family. And so where does having a cocktail and catching some rays, like how does that all come together for you with friends and family?
So it comes together here in Ocean City. That's where I spent a lot of the summers growing up. Eventually bought this
Pause.
place.
Ready? Watch what's happening. He just said it. So inferentially, there was something there. And now we're talking about Justin growing up and his life history, because people only tell us what they want us to know, right? So please, Justin. So growing up, what was it like going to Ocean City?
And I always had great memories of here. Took many summer vacations. My parents actually just retired here last year, and I bought a place here 2 years ago. So my brother bought a place here. So we love Ocean City.
Pause. That is the most energetically engaged Justin's been the entire time. And you laughed. And how good does it feel to be in Ocean City, to have bought a place there, to have bought a place where your brother has a place and your parents has a place? Where does that fit in your heart and your hierarchy of life, Justin?
Top. Yeah, very near the top. And it's phenomenal. I have 6-month-old twins. So it's great to bring them here and get them on the beach as well, and bring them up to how I grew up too on Ocean City shorelines.
Well, congratulations for bringing that legacy to your children, for the success that your family's had. To be together and to achieve that is absolutely extraordinary. And how does it feel for you in your heart to have achieved that?
Phenomenal. No other words than that.
Yeah, awesome. So level 5 listening is what's occurring. And that all started with like, hey, what do you like to do? And now we've given Justin a beautiful moment of I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters to me, because we've let this man who is cared and loved enough about his family, his parents, his brother, and his children to work hard enough in a structure to create the American dream, like the American dream, having a home by the beach, the ability to share with family, having children. And Justin, brother, you are well on your way to building the legacy you dream of. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, definitely. Thanks so much, Sean.
Yeah, very cool. So that's an example for the question of level 5 listening. It's knowing what people said, why they said it, and the way he said the thing. And then they said, oh, like with friends and family. Right. And so it was like family and his heart. So, well, thank you, Justin. Anything else that I could share for today?
No, the final thing that I'll just kind of touch on that I always get from you, especially and the organizations, is and you would call it a higher vibrational energy, because a lot of the times when you're talking about, when you're using those sales like pitching, hooking, closing, those have the lower vibrational energies. And I've always been turned off by sales, and I've never saw myself ever as a salesman, but I being a financial advisor, I guess that at the end of the day is what we do. We sell people on their financial futures and how they should best save and invest their money. And so getting into, quote unquote, a sales program, I never did, because it always felt, I don't know, greasy or dirty at the end of the day, and that lower vibrational energy. But something about, the way you have with integrity, and that's why I love the integrity-based human influence, and how it kind of wraps everything together with that higher vibrational energy, to serve people. There's just something really attractive about that.
Well, thank you, brother. And fundamentally, it's just a reality. Like, we have to generate yes, but how we generate yes is a different question. Justin, what you do is in such service of people. You and I both know that 90+% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Those that don't have immense amounts of fear, uncertainty about money. There's complexities and mistakes people are making with their taxes, with their fees, with all of these different dynamics. And the work and service that you're providing here, and I mean this with all my heart, is valuable for humans, because the confronting of our money has a massive impact on how our life functions and works. And when we don't do it and have somebody we trust, we care about bringing truth forward, just like yourself, then we have a massive hole in our boat of finance and a capitalist structure. It's not everything, but it's not nothing. So I want to honor you, brother, in what you do and the work you're bringing here, and everybody who's been here today. It has been my privilege. We happily offer you. We have a show that we do regularly. We have other ways to talk to people on our team. I assure you, with everything in my reputation, I make a lot more money much more easily doing the work that we do in the law and growing and scaling that. But that, and I love what we do at Callagy Law, but that is not my mission. My mission in the world is to cause people to understand the superpower of influence, where to apply it, and how to get yourself to use it, so we can all have beautiful lives like Justin is having, with family homes and family togetherness and financial freedom and abundance and all the beautiful things. So thank you for the time today. Everybody has spent here. I'm very grateful. And Justin, truly appreciate you having me on today.
Thanks so much, Sean. And I did put a Calendly link for Fernando invite to immersion in there. So people, if you're interested in kind of connecting further, you can go in there and schedule a time and get connected further.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Justin. Have a great day. Thanks,
All right,
everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.